discuss about compute, and today we'll talk about uh, the domain called storage. Okay, why do we need a storage? Can anyone summarize why do we need a storage and what kind of a different storage devices where we can see in our organization? Can anyone?
We need storage to store data. Like there are different type of storage services where you get wire tape one, then SSDs, then hard disks,
Hmm?
like like few that can be NAS network access storage.
Correct. Okay, so can't we use databases? What do you mean by databases? Uh, can't we use databases instead of storage devices, or can we have a differences between storage devices or databases?
Storage devices store raw type of data, whereas databases, if you take like there are different type of database, RDBMS and like which stores systemic way data and some type of like follows code rules kind of thing. There are non-RDBMS data like MongoDB kind of thing, Cassandra, which uses like NoSQL type things. So databases basically, if it follow table and row type of thing, where you can store data in organized way and you can retrieve data using like queries like SQL query or some other thing. Whereas storage, right, it will dump whatever data you keep in a raw format.
Good. See, first of all, we need to understand the difference between databases or storage devices. Even in your organization, you definitely you will come across these devices. Now, I'll try to list it out, one by one. Probably you may be able to correlate. See, whenever I say storage devices and databases, the purpose of both the services are same, but the type of data we store, it is different. If I say storage devices, I can store any kind of data. For example, if you want to have your video or photo or your some zip file or some jar file or some bar file, any kind of data, there is no restrictions at all. You can just create them and you can store on a particular device. These are all called as storage devices, right? When you come to databases, database is also which will help us to store our data, whereas it will help us to store our data in a structured manner. It has to be in some rows and columns, and also it can also store in terms of object wise as well. So we have NoSQL databases as well, so we can also store the data, but it's a structured one. Whereas coming to storage one, it is a raw data. I mean, we can't put any. I mean, if we really want to have a raw data, however, it is generated from a source, so accordingly we can directly store them here. This is one of the advantages. For example, if you are monitoring some network devices, right? So definitely the network devices logs are really kind of a complex one, and it can be a CSV or it can be a JSON or it can be any format. Or we can just extract them into a text file and we can feed it. So these kind of when you say these kind of requirements are if you come across these kind of requirements, then definitely your option to select storage device instead of database services. For example, in our day-to-day life, we'll be using Google Drive or Google Images, right? So, what exactly Google Images will try to give? It will accept your data. Or Google Drive, we can store any kind of data, or a PEM file, photo, or jar, or any kind of data. We can store it on Google Drive. So, similarly, in our organization, if some raw data needs to be stored on particular device, then our choice is to go ahead and select the storage device. Do you see my point? Basically, storage services are the storage services which will help us to store the unstructured data or raw data at our convenient format, and we don't have any restrictions on the limit, so we can a huge number of data can be stored and kept under your organization. So because of which we prefer to use storage devices. What are other different storage devices we have? Let us see. Okay, I think elastic block storage we have already learned. EBS is a volume, and as I mentioned, it can only be used. It can only be used along with the EC2. If you don't have a EC2, then EBS will not come into the picture. So will not be make use of this particular storage. Right? This is all about EBS. This is also storage service. And Amazon EFS. Actually, I was supposed to complete this, when I'm done with EBS, but I just took some time so that you guys should be familiar with these things. Probably in next week, I'll take this EFS part. What is this EFS? See, EFS, when I say, okay, EBS can be used, right, with the EC2 instance, whereas EFS, it can only be used for Linux machines. Please understand. When I say EBS holds good for Windows as well as Linux, whereas Amazon EFS is again a database, it's a storage service which can be used only with Linux service, Linux machines, but these are all shared file system, which means it is kind of a pen drive, you can say. If you want to have it, you can just use it with one device, or if you want to share a similar kind of device across all the instances. In your organization, will have something called as a shared drive, correct? Shared drive in the sense it can be accessed each and everyone in your organization. If that is your requirement, we'll go ahead and use EFS. Please try to correlate your your organization requirement. Just consider this is a EC2 instance. It can be used with Linux as well as Windows. And in your organization, if you need to have a kind of a common drive, you can just make use of EFS. And please note that this can be used only with the Linux one. So we'll just create one drive, and we'll just install necessary software, and we'll just share it with all your employees, so that we don't have to dedicatedly to give a separate pen drive, kind of a separate storage device to each and everyone. Instead, we'll just keep them in a single drive, and we'll just say, just try to access this particular drive. You'll be able to you can just get into it, and you can download the necessary software which are available there. So this is the help of Amazon EFS. And we have Amazon Glacier. What do you mean by Amazon Glacier? See, when you really want to store some data which are not frequently accessible, see, you must have a clarity on the selection of your storage devices. You can't, simply see, this will also store the data. This will also store the data. All the available, services which I'm showing here, each and every device, devices will store the data, but it should be our choice based on our requirements. Okay, coming to Amazon Glacier. If your data is visible, or if you need to access your data very frequently, not, not on a regular basis, in that case, it is preferable to use Glacier. For example, let me try to give one scenario. Okay, see, let's say when a new baby born, we need to have a birth certificate for that particular baby. So it's only one time, hardly as soon as the baby comes in, then immediately we'll just go ahead and apply this particular birth certificate. At that point of time, definitely we will go ahead and we'll make use of that certificate, and we'll keep it with us. And by mistake, if we lose that, definitely we may visit that particular center probably after 10 years or 15 years. But that particular record should be maintained in that organization, right? If that is your case, then Amazon Glacier is the best option. Please understand, if it is not your frequent one, if you are using these details rarely, probably after 1 year or 2 months or after 6 years, but still you need to preserve those data, then Amazon Glacier is a very good option. Okay. While implementing these services, they have come up with all these, kinds of requirements, and accordingly, they have built these services. Do you see my point on Amazon Glacier? So this should be your option when your data is not frequently accessible. In that case, please go ahead and select Amazon Glacier. And we have some more storage services called, okay, AWS Gateway, Storage Gateway. This is a storage device which will help me to transfer the data from on-premises to AWS service. So which will act as an interface, or which will act as a mediator, so which will help us to pull the data from on-premises uh, to AWS resources. Right. So here, so this kind of still, and we do have many more. Probably I have not covered all of them. So we have n number of storage devices. So we have seen these two. I mean, EFS will be learning, and today's topic is to learn about Amazon S3. Amazon S3 is also a storage device, and which stands unique compared to all of these storage devices, or all of these storage services. Okay, we get into this topic. So let us try to understand what is Amazon S3. Please understand. So when I look for Amazon storage services, so I can list out EPS is also a storage device in AWS, EFS, Glacier, Gateway, as well as Amazon S3. No, each and everyone will be using Amazon S3. What do you mean by S3? It's a simple storage service. Amazon S3 is a simple storage service, which means it is a kind of a storage device which will help us to store the data for a longer time. And here, I don't have any restrictions to store your data. I can, if you want, I can store a terabyte of data on this particular service. Basically, what I need to do, I just have to create a S3. I'll just say, so how exactly it works. We have something called as bucket. Right? We have something called as bucket. So in order to make use of this S3, S3 refers to simple storage service. We need to create something called as a bucket. Bucket is a placeholder. Bucket is a place where I can insert some data. For example, the creation of a bucket is nothing but a creation of a folder. Let's say ICMC AWS Associate Solution Architect Associate PPT. This is a bucket. Under this bucket, I can create multiple objects. These are all called objects. So AWS Compute is an object. AWS Storage is another object. And within this, these are all sub-objects, I can say. Right? So it has to be in this manner. So first we need to create a bucket. So bucket in a sense, we will be creating the folder. Within this folder, if we consider this compute should be an object, or if this complete folder should be moved under this particular bucket, then this will be considered as an object. So whatever the data which we are storing, so each and everything will be considered as a object under bucket. In short, if I say, let's say I have a file called add.txt. If I have to store this particular file on my Amazon S3, then I should upload this particular file onto my S3 service. If that is the case, this would be this add.txt file would be my object, and I'm supposed to put this object under some bucket. Okay? So this is the concept of bucket and object. So we can store multiple objects under same bucket, and we can also create n number of buckets. Of course, we have certain limitations and restrictions. We will see them. Okay. All right. Coming to S3, why we still need to use it? See, basically, it's a global service. It is a global service. Why do we call this as a global service? Say, if I have to create some instance, I'll have to if I need to create some instance, it has to be created under a region. So that is the reason EC2 or compute resources are region specific. Compute resources are region specific. But when I say S3, it's a global one, which means whatever the data which we are storing, it will be available globally. See, that's the reason you are seeing here. Whenever you create an option of buckets, we will talk about the buckets and everything. If we create a bucket, of course, bucket should get created under a particular region, but that will be listed under global infrastructure. So that's the reason it is called as it's a global service. Definitely, if you have to create any bucket, it should be created under any of the region. It is selectable. It is our wish to select a particular region where I can say this particular data should get into this particular region. That option I have, but it does store the data globally. Okay. Next, definitely, as I mentioned, unknowingly or knowingly, we will be using this S3 going forward. We'll see this is I've just used one elastic bean stack. Indirectly, it has occupied, it has created one file under S3. This is I have not created manually, physically, or have not created, but automatically my system I've just used one of the service because of which it has created one file. So, which means indirectly or directly we'll be making use of this particular storage part. Okay, so and it is very safe to place your files and everything, and it is based on object. Whatever the data which we are storing, everything are based on object, and we can get mostly 100% of durability. So there is 0.0000001% of chances of losing the data. So it is very much secure, and these are all very much durable. You can rely on this S3. And a single Amazon S3 object can store maximum of 5 terabytes. What I was saying, when I say this add.text is my, what is this? This is my, this is my object, right? This is my object. So which means I can store, I in one shot of each object can have maximum of 5 terabytes. But the total volume that an S3 bucket can store unlimited, which means when I say this is my bucket, when I create a bucket called my bucket, it can hold unlimited of data, but each object or each file or each folder, whatever you create, or each image or each video, whatever, it should not exceed more than 5 terabytes. But still, if you still wish to continue, it does allow, but you should create a new bucket. Is it fine? Sorry, you should create a new file. You see my point? Whatever the data which comes under a bucket called my bucket, it can store unlimited of data, but each object can allow, it should not exceed more than 5 TB. It should not exceed more than 5 TB. Okay. Next point here, the total volume that an okay it can go unlimited, and if the object size is greater than 5 gigabytes, then you should consider as a multi-part approach. If I remember correctly, I think in 2019 or 18 or 19, we have an option of uploading multi-part manually, but now they have made it clear everything will be taken care by AWS. We were using AWS console, I was saying it. So we have some options called CLI. So with the help of this, we will be able to upload our images, or we used to upload our data on Amazon S3. And if you see our data is growing more than 5 gigabytes, more than 5 GB, then at this point of time, AWS will take care of convert this particular image or particular data as multi-part. For example, let's say if I have 1 TB of data, 1 TB of data in a particular object. So what exactly multi-part instance? It does equally, or they have some internal algorithm. For example, 200 MB. It does divide a particular data into 200 MB respectively, so that it meets the necessary the data size which we have inputting. So accordingly, it does partition the data and it does upload. So that this is the mechanism which we are using. Please understand, we can store unlimited data on S3, and the maximum bucket can hold up to 5 terabyte of data. And if your data is more than 5 GB, then it does allow, but internally it does convert that upload to multi-part upload. We'll see how to upload and everything. Okay, this is about the storage and this capacity. Now, coming to bucket name, of course, because as we are creating a S3 bucket globally, it must have a unique name, and lifecycle management, versioning, encryption, everything will be seen probably in tomorrow's class. Okay, and we have some restrictions. What do you mean by restrictions? Once we create a bucket, I cannot transfer the ownership. For example, if I create a bucket with my name, I cannot hand it over. I cannot give the ownership to Pranay. So this is one restriction due to security reasons. And when we create a bucket, we choose a name, correct? And with the help of that, in a AWS region, we'll create it. So which means, let's say if I have to create a bucket, I'll just create a bucket by giving some name by selecting one of the region, right? And once we create a bucket, we cannot change the name of the bucket, and also we cannot transfer or we cannot change the region which we have created. Do you see my point? We can create a bucket, and we by selecting appropriate region. Once we create a bucket, we cannot change the name of the bucket, as well as we cannot change the region which we have already created. And here you can see, by default, we can create up to 100 buckets in each AWS account. But if needed, these are all customizable. See, here we have something called as service quota. Please should aware of these things. Here we have something called as service quota. This is also service in available in AWS. Okay, so here you can see in this dashboard. Okay, click on AWS services. For example, S3. Just click here. Here you can see the available checkpoint to a particular resource. What I was saying, let's say what they are saying, we can create 100 buckets per account. If we need it, we can always increase the number. How to increase the number? Just for example, bucket. See here what they are, please understand here. So here they are saying, so we can create 100 buckets. And here we are saying this is the 100 buckets. These many buckets we can create. If we really need to increase it, just request quota increase, and you can say I need 1,000, and you can request it. And they will come and evaluate your request, and they'll also send an email. They'll come up with some questions, and definitely they may ask some proofs or kind of a requirement. Based on that, they may approve your request or they may reject your request as well. But these are all customizable. So similarly, you can select EC2, whatever the service is, right? So you can create anything, right? You can check anything. So most of the services you can see here. If it is object related, you can select something, or you can just, these are the AWS services, right? So compute, or yeah, see, Amazon compute cloud EC2. So here you can see the parameters of EC2, and based on that, you can say if it is customizable or if it is adjustable, it's a yes. And based on that, the AMI, what they are saying, we can create 50,000 EMI per account. If you need more than this, we, we can always go ahead and increase it by giving some proper reason. Right? This is what AWS S3. Yeah, this is a quick introduction about the simple storage service. We'll quickly get into our practical and we will see that. Right. So just get into just type in the service bar. Just type S3 or simple storage service. Just click here, and here you see option called bucket. Right here it lists down the available bucket. We will see the remaining, the options whatever we are seeing. But for now, let us try to create some bucket and let us try to insert some object and let's see how it works. Just clicking on option called bucket. So as I mentioned, bucket name should be unique. Let's say text. I'll give, and I want to create it in North Virginia region. That is also fine. For now, let me not talk anything about ACLs. ACLs refers to access control list. Let me not talk anything about it right away, but we'll have a detailed discussion about access control list. And later, by default, whatever the bucket we are creating, by default, whatever the bucket for test bucket we are creating, this particular bucket is blocked by all, which means it is restricted to public. If you really want to access it, you need to uncheck this. Okay, and come down, and you should acknowledge that. Okay, I know, I am aware of it. I am aware that this I'm giving a public access. I'm making this particular bucket to public access so that each and everyone in the world can access a particular URL and you'll be able to use that. That's it. Create it. I'll get error because this particular this thing should be unique, right? So because somebody have already used it, and the reason it is comparing the name with in global structure, so that's the reason it has to be unique. For example, what is the date today? 11, 7, 7. Let's see. I think okay, somebody has already created. I'll give another one. Let's say. Okay, so this is the unique name, but it is try to give a valid name and it should be unique and it should be recognizable as well. And here I'm creating a bucket. Now I've created a bucket. Bucket is nothing but just a container I've created, but I have not stored any data till now. How to store the data? So just click here, just click on your bucket and now click on upload option. Here or here. Just upload here, and you can also add the folder as I mentioned. So if you want, you can just put them here, or you can also add some files. But for our testing purpose, just let me try to add some files. Let's say test. Right now, please come to permissions sections, and I mean let us not worry about ACL. We will discuss them. Just here in the ACL section, please make it to public. If you don't select this option, then people in the world they'll not be able to access it. And also just accept the fact that understand the risk of granting the public access to this particular object. While creating a bucket, we made available publicly, right? First of all, when we created a bucket, we say that okay, this particular bucket can be accessed by everyone, correct? And later, what we did, we are uploading a object into it, and we are also making this as a public one so that everyone can access it. Right now, I'm uploading. Now, I have successfully uploaded the data. Now, how to access it? Right. So this is your bucket, and this is your thing, and just click on your object. This is the object which you have created. Here, you will see an option of object URL. I'm just pasting this one. See, this can be used by everyone. And also, I'll just try to paste here. I request all of you to access it and just confirm. right? Definitely you'll be able to see this. And if you definitely we can restrict going forward, we will do that. All right. So this is about creation of a bucket and object, and once you create it, it's your duty to it's your duty to delete. How to delete a particular bucket? Just come to bucket and click on delete option. See what exactly it is saying? Bucket is not empty because you are trying to delete a bucket, but inside the bucket you have certain content. Please delete that content before deleting the bucket. So if that is the case, just click on empty bucket, and here it is saying just type permanently delete. It is kind of authentication it is doing, and whatever the content or whatever the object, I've just cleared it up and click on exit. Now just click on your bucket, click on delete, and just it does do authentication. Try to give your bucket name, delete bucket. Your deleted your bucket. So this is what a brief introduction about your S3. Rest